It is Tuesday, June the 10th, 5:30, and we will begin a public hearing to address proposed amendments to the Osprey Village Secondary Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw. I would call the hearing to order and acknowledge that this is a public hearing, so we will have a short presentation, any input from the public. At this time, I will record the council members who are present. Councillor Reinhardt, Bell, Oikel, Moore, Smith, and Deputy Mayor Vino, and myself as mayor. Regrets from Councillor Brooks and Councillor Hubley, and Councillor DeLong is on a leave of absence. And absent is Councillor Burns. The hearing agenda is as follows: a staff presentation with proposed amendments or written and verbal presentations from the public, and a review of the next steps in the process, and then we declare the public hearing closed. If there are verbal presentations, we would ask that the people state their name and address and direct all statements to the chair and limit presentations to 10 minutes. So I would begin by asking staff to make a brief presentation on the amendments. Karen.
Good evening, Council and Honourable Mayor. Tonight we'll be going over the amendments to the Osprey Village Secondary Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw documents, focusing on changes to permitted uses as well as rezoning proposals for 3 areas within the planned area. This is following the first reading that was conducted on May 13th. So as an overview, we'll look at the site, the 3 areas, as well as the proposed amendments for these 3 areas, and finalize this presentation with the motions going forward. So as an overview, there are 3 areas within Osprey Village that have recommended amendments. Area 1 is along Harold Wynot Road. It is currently permitting, the proposed amendment would be to permit lower density residential development on 4 unserviced industrially designated lots. Area 2 is along Alley Champlain Drive. It is currently zoned institutional. The recommended amendment for this would be to rezone it to the general commercial zone to enable mixed use development. And finally, Area 3 with the proposed amendment is to rezone property along Pine Grove Road. It is currently zoned high density, and we are recommending to rezone it to open space to protect the natural features that are on the property. And these are the 3 properties within the planned area. So we have Area 1 here. It's under the light industrial zone. These properties here. Area 2, currently zoned institutional. The recommended amendment being to rezone it to general commercial, and then the final triangular property here, currently high density residential, to be rezoned to open space. So just to go into a little bit more detail, Area 1 along Harold Wynot Road, there's 4 properties here. They're currently zoned as light industrial. However, based on current past development interests, we see that there is potential for residential use. However, the way the language in the zone is written, it only currently permits high-density residential, which means there is a 25 units per hectare minimum requirement in place. So the first proposed amendment is to amend the land use bylaw document to remove this high-density residential requirements for these 4 PIDs specifically. And these are the 4 PIDs along with their civic addresses, and as mentioned before, the amendment would be to exempt the high-density residential requirement on these 4 properties. Going on to Area 2, it is currently zoned institutional. It is a slim rectangular lot along Alley Champlain Drive. Zoned institutional, currently vacant. It is owned by the municipality, but we see some potential for commercial or residential use. However, due to it being zoned institutional currently, the uses are quite restrictive, so the second proposed amendment would be to rezone it from institutional to general commercial. These amendments would require amendments to both planning documents, the secondary planning strategy, as well as the land use bylaw document. And this is what the zoning map would look like upon the amendment. So we see the rectangular property highlighted in yellow here being rezoned from institutional, or IN, to general commercial, or GC. This would require amendments to the secondary planning strategy, which is where the future land use map, or the designation of this property, would also be changed from being community to enterprise. And then finally, we have the third area, the triangular property on Pine Grove Road, currently zoned high-density residential. However, due to several development constraints, the third recommendation would be to rezone this from high-density residential to open space. This is what it would look like on the zoning map upon the amendment being made. Similar to Area 2, this would require an amendment to the secondary planning strategy document as well. So the future land use map would have to be changed. So the triangular property would change from the residential designation to the community designation. And here's a bit of an overview of the past meetings we've done on these topics. So there was an initial public information session on February 5th. We then had 2 planning advisory committee meetings. The first one was on February 20th. The second one was on April 24th. And then following that, PAC made the recommendation to recommend council with the amendments. And following that, we had our first reading that was conducted on May 13th. And as part of this process, we conducted a stakeholder engagement with external and internal agencies that would address several of the planning requirements outlined in the secondary planning strategy. So we contacted organizations such as departments in the province, the RCMP, EHS, as well as several of our internal departments. And these are some of the planning topics or planning implications that needed to be addressed as outlined in the Osprey Village Secondary Planning Strategy. So looking at the impact on the natural environment, adequacy of municipal services, street networks, stuff like that, and seeing if these amendments would affect these things. And we got feedback from these agencies saying that largely these implications would remain not impacted. And so this engagement, these topics have been satisfied as shown in this table here. So following this, if council were to conclude the public hearing, the following motions would be in order. So we recommend council conduct second reading of bylaw 20G, which would be to amend the Osprey Village secondary planning strategy, as well as conduct second reading of bylaw 21I, which would amend the Osprey Village land use bylaw document. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Were there any written submissions made regarding this application?
Yes, we did receive one letter from CSAP, or the Acadian Provincial School Board, about the specifically about the amendment to Area 2, so the municipally owned vacant lot along Alley Champlain Drive.
At this point, it would be the opportunity for public input, and I think, as I understand, the gentlemen in the gallery are here for the council meeting later and don't want to speak on this. Am I correct? Okay, thank you and welcome. Again, I would ask if there's any members of the public who wish to comment on the application that's before us. And as a third and final time, I would ask if any members of the public wish to speak on these amendments, and to now go forward to address council. So no one has come forward. Municipal council later in our meeting that starts at 6. After that, we'll make a decision at the council meeting after the close of this public hearing. If council deems it advisable to proceed with the amendments to the Osprey Village Secondary Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw, council will conduct second reading. And once council has approved the documents, they are forwarded to the Provincial Department of Municipal Affairs for review. Upon confirmation from Municipal Affairs that the documents do not conflict with any provincial statements of interest, a notice of approval is inserted into the local newspaper advising of the adoption of these documents. The date that the public notice appears in the paper is the date the documents become effective. I now declare this public hearing closed.